And it was just one night, I was watching the television and I heard what I thought was thunder, and I went to the window, and it didn't seem to be thundery out there, and then the phone rang, and it was, my landlady, and she was saying, "Are you okay?" "Yes, fine. Why?" And she said, "Oh, a plane has been blown up out of the sky above you." And so we just turned on the television and kind of watched it play out on TV like everybody else was, except that out of the window you could see the sky was orange and just mayhem. We were just up a little hill, and down at the bottom was the sort of main road going up through Scotland, and that was kind of gridlocked. And then journalists were sort of coming and banging on the door because they wanted to use the phone. There was no mobiles or anything then. My parents couldn't get hold of me all night because the lines were sort of taken up by the emergency services. And the ambulances and the police and everybody kind of rushed to the scene, but nothing could be done because everybody was dead. And, you know, um, hmm, sorry, didn't expect that all these decades later. Yeah, so we didn't really know what to expect when light came up the next day, and we didn't know what we were going to open our door to. Wow. We walked into town, and you just saw bits of plain in the fronts of gardens, and we just didn't look up because we didn't know what we were going to see. And actually, people did see the most horrendous things, in the trees and in their gardens, and people were really, really devastated. You never ever would want anyone to witness what those people saw. And so, yeah, it was really devastating for the whole town and for the families. And the town was kind of overtaken by journalists, and it was sort of this media kind of storm. And I just remember going into we just didn't know what to do. You just kind of we just went to the pub, and everyone was just kind of sitting there. And this was like 11 in the morning, and just for a cup of coffee, and there were loads of journalists in there. And then we just heard one guy say, yeah, there was, because obviously everyone had died in the plane, but also 11 people had died on the ground, and some of the houses had been completely destroyed. And I heard this guy say, yeah, there's a child that he'd gone to the telephone box to make a call, and when he came out, his whole family had been destroyed. And it was just it kind of almost like went into shock, I think. And I'm quite resilient in many ways, and although I've always been very, very fearful, when things actually happen, you kind of just have to get on with it. And we were alive, we hadn't lost anyone, and there was a sort of real sense of, in my head, that there was a kind of hierarchy of grief. I hadn't lost anyone, I wasn't injured, I still had my home, and therefore, I had no right to kind of feel the pain that other people were feeling. And I went into the church, and there was a church hall next door, and I just sort of, something in me just went through the door to the other space, and it was just filled with coffins. This was like maybe a couple of days later. Floor to ceiling, what do you do with that amount of bodies? So it was all very shocking. But I think what I did was just kind of bury it.